How to make this year your best year as a musician. Unfortunately, we don't live in a time where talent alone will pretty much make your career. You need these 3 things, and I guarantee you'll see a major difference in your outcome. But first, a quick message from the sponsor of this video, DistroKid. Now, if you're looking to get your music on hundreds of digital platforms like Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, and more, then look no further than DistroKid. They're by far the easiest and most cost-effective way for you to get your music out there to the world. And right now, with my link right here below, you can get 7% off your first year subscription, and that's 7% off of an already incredibly affordable plan. Let me tell you about a great new feature as well. Splits. In modern day musicianship, collaborating is one of the biggest parts of the work. And now DistroKid offers one of the easiest ways to split revenue with producers, musicians, writers, etc. Because we all know it's extremely important to get paid. And you'll definitely want to use splits because as someone who has had to deal with paying multiple people for music before, it can be a nightmare. And all DistroKid wants to do is make it as easy and seamless as possible. Now, those you split revenue with will need a DistroKid account, but for those that you split with, they'll receive 50% off of their service. How are there so many discounts? They're just giving stuff away at this point. So thank you DistroKid for introducing something like this, and thank you for sponsoring the video. So 3 things that you need to make this year be your best year. Those things are gear, smart habits, and goals. Now, when I say gear, no, I don't mean more gear, I mean the gear that you already have. My goal this year is to not buy a single piece of audio production equipment because gear does not matter. One of the worst habits that we naturally have as human beings is FOMO. And it's easy. There's so much innovative, insane, cool new gear that comes out almost on a weekly basis now. But how does that gear serve us? We tend to think when I have a Neumann U87, that's when I'll make something great. Sure, a Neumann U87 is a remarkable piece of gear, but if you don't understand the fundamentals of recording, how do you expect it to sound any good? Was Hemingway able to move people the way he did with his work because of the pen he used, or because he was a great writer? Does it matter if you have a Toyota Corolla or a Porsche 911 if all you're doing is getting to work? If the sentiment of, if I have this piece of gear, then I'll be able to accomplish this means anything to you, let me ask you this. How do you get there? How do you get from where you are now of not owning the gear to where you want to be owning the gear? Sure, if you have a full-time job, you can save for that piece of gear, but what about the great art to be made in the meantime? Are you just not going to make anything because you can't make anything great without this microphone or this synthesizer? Bon Iver recorded For Emma forever ago with 3 things. A Shure SM57, which is one of the most accessible microphones in the world, an old Avid M-Box, which you can get on the used market for $60, and a very limited of Pro Tools that came with the audio interface. There's nothing fancy at all about that setup, and yet it's credited as one of the greatest indie records of all time. It wasn't because of the gear, it wasn't because of the technicality, it was because of the art itself. In summary, we need to focus on mastering the gear that we already have before we upgrade. And it may be very contradictory, a guy with a wall full of guitars behind him talking about why you don't need gear. While it's a cool backdrop, I can attest and confidently say that I would rather have taken the money and got fewer quality pieces of gear than just buying a bunch of mid-price guitars. Build your musicianship, build your craft, and maybe focus on building a business that can pay for the gear that you want. Focusing on gear instead of crafting is always a disservice to your work. The next thing to focus on is building smart habits. Now, every year we always focus on going to the gym more as a habit or focusing on what we're consuming, but what do we do for our music? What do we do for our business? We need to build smart habits. Now, keep in mind, habits are not goals. Habits help us achieve goals. We don't just work out 4 times a week for a certain amount of time, get the body that we want, and then stop working out. These are lifetime commitments to help shape your actions. So here are a few habits that I've implemented in my life that have made a major difference in my workflow. Before every project, I make sure that I clear my desk. I'm sitting here for hours at a time, and I'm a firm believer that a cluttered workspace is a cluttered mind. So I want to make sure my space is nice and neat and I'm not faced with any distractions. Speaking of distractions, another great habit is setting an app blocker on my phone. I recommend something like ScreenZen. This is an app blocker and it'll also prompt when I open something like, let's say, Instagram. I'll be faced with this question every single time. I realized my camera wasn't in focus, but it says, is this a good time? When we're faced with a prompt that asks us if now is a good time, it forces us to mentally check in with ourselves to see if this doom scrolling session is more important than the project that we have due tomorrow. But my personal settings that I use for anything like Facebook or Instagram, I'm only allowed to open my phone 5 times a day for 5 minutes at a time. Our desire and lack of self-discipline screams much louder than our conscience telling us to do the right thing. So download Screen Zen, not sponsored, just really recommend it. Another habit that many of us forget about is the power of the calendar. In the past, when I was first getting very exciting opportunities to be a part of this show or this video or whatever it may have been, I always forgot to put it in the calendar. I would tell myself, you'll remember it, it's fine, how could you forget it? And what would happen was I would be late for a show. I would miss this interview or this opportunity. I missed opportunities and people stopped calling. I mean, it's very obvious, but many of us do it. If we don't put this important task into a calendar, how are we supposed to remember it? So living your life by a calendar will save you a lot of mental energy. If we think of our brain as a computer, its main function, what our brain does, isn't for memory, it's for RAM. We require so much energy from our brain when we're trying to make decisions, getting started on this project, remembering someone's name, even thinking of what we're having for breakfast. So thinking back to the computer comparison, our memory is the memory. We only have a certain amount of storage. Eventually, we'll need to clear some space for new data. Our calendar is the external hard drive. It's good to upload information here because it takes stress off of the internal memory, takes a load off of the RAM, and it makes us run more efficiently. So when you're doing your calendar, be sure to make it clear, clean, and easy to follow. I could do a whole other video on calendars. I know, super fun topic. Anyway, back to habits. Now, I can't make your habits for you. That's something you're gonna have to do. I meditate, get regular exercise, I read, and I journal, and I can tell you, sure, these things make a great difference in my personal life, but they also make a great difference in my work life. Having good, healthy habits gives us energy so we could reach our goals. Speaking of which, let's talk about goals. One of the most simple ways to see dramatic results is to set proper goals. Now, yeah, being a music-making millionaire is quite the goal to have, but if you're like me and you don't have an uncle who works for Warner Music, then it's not really realistic. You have to be honest with yourself about what is within reach of you planning that goal, and you have to think ahead. Instead of saying my goal is to blow up this year, make blow up a quantifiable value. Is blowing up getting 100,000 Spotify streams? Is it getting a certain number of monthly listeners? Once you have that quantifiable number, what are 3 to 5 action steps that you can take to get toward that goal? If I want 100,000 monthly listeners, my steps would be to release new material, come up with a marketing plan, and put together a social content calendar. From there, we can break those steps down even further. To release new materials, we need to write, make demos, and then actually get production to the song. And after you get your finalized versions, go to DistroKid and use my link below for 7% off your first year, of course. To develop a marketing plan from this release, I need to draft up my campaign. I need to find my audience. I need to determine my budget. And then all of those steps can be broken down even further. Do you see what happens? You start with the end goal in mind, and then you're able to break it down, break it down. In this industry, it's very easy to feel lost and not really know what to do next. By asking why to literally everything that you do and understanding what every step means, that's how you get results. Now, just like habits, I can't determine your goals for you, but just remember to be realistic. I'm not gonna take on this super massive project if I know I don't have the time because of my current job. If you have a job that eats away at your time, your steps along the way should be able to fit within your schedule. For the schedule you have, not for the schedule you want. For a reference on how to make music when you have a full-time job, I recommend you checking out this video that I made a couple months ago. Now, you've probably noticed that nothing that I've said in this video actually has anything to do with music itself. If you're wanting to grow as a musician, you need to take yourself seriously, but not too seriously because that ruins the fun, of course, but you need a solid foundation for yourself. On a side note, if you're looking for a rather untraditional way to make music a full-time career, please see the link below because we have a free 1-hour training that shows you the exact path, exactly how to do that. I'm super stoked to announce that I have recently joined the Tommy Z & Co family. We're a production company that makes music for big brand campaigns, and we also have a masterclass where we teach thousands of musicians exactly how to get there. I was a student, I went through this course, and it honestly changed my life. So if you're interested in what this world is about, the free training, again, is in the description below. If you've enjoyed this video, I do hope that you consider subscribing, and I will see you all in the next one. Peace.